These little socks are knit using the techniques that you'll see in just about every cuff down sock pattern. We're going to work 2x2 ribbing, we're going to work heel flap, we're going to work turning the heel and the gusset. And so if you follow along with the pattern here, it really sets you up with the techniques you need to knit any cuff down sock pattern, like I'm saying. If you want to follow along with this pattern, it's available over on my website. These are called baby athletic socks. The first thing we need to do is get our cast on going onto double pointed needles and work the first bit of 2x2 ribbing. So let me show you how that goes. Okay, I've deliberately left these things kind of in a mess so that I can show you how to straighten it out. I've cast on my stitches and separated them evenly onto 3 needles. And to get going with double pointed needles, you want to straighten things out, untangle your working yarn and your tail and everything. And I always get going with things in an H shape like this. I want to make sure nothing's twisted, and I actually do have a twist here I want to take care of. Nothing's twisted, and my working yarn is coming from over here on the right side. The first stitch I'm going to knit is this one here over on the left, and when I use this yarn to knit this stitch, it's going to close up the loop. So I want to get these stitches closer to the tip of the needle, like that, and give this a quarter turn. And I'm still not picking anything up off the table because I want to keep things from flopping around and getting twisted. I'm putting my needle into that first stitch, finding my working yarn, making sure it's not my tail, wrapping the needle, and then I can pick it up and pull that stitch through. Now we're working 2x2 rib here. Well, first of all, let me say that I have given a pretty good tug to that first stitch to minimize the gap between the 2 needles. I'm going to go into the next stitch and knit it. And because we're working 2x2 rib, I want to yarn forward between the 2 needles and purl the next 2 stitches. And then to go back to knitting, I'm going to yarn back and knit 2. Yarn forward, purl 2. Yarn back, knit 2. Okay, and we have the stitches arranged on the needles so that you will always end with purl 2 on each stick, and you'll always start with knit 2 on the next stick. And that's one way to make sure that you're always on track with your knitting, with your stitches. Let me go ahead and finish up this needle. Whoops. Yarn forward and purl 2. Now the pattern is telling us to complete a certain number of yarns depending on the certain number of rounds depending on the size you're knitting, and you'll know that you have completed a round when you knit 3 needles and come back to the spot where your tail is hanging, right here. This spot between these 2 needles is the beginning of your round. So go ahead and follow the pattern for the number of rounds you need to knit in this first color, and next up we're going to switch colors and start doing the striping. Now I'm going to show you a quick technique video that's going to help us to have really clean lines in the stripes. When you're working with ribbing, if you don't do this technique, you end up with little purl bumps of the old color showing in the new color, or the other way around. Anyway, you don't get a really clean stripe, so this is how to fix that. I've already attached the new color, and all I did was just start knitting with it. I didn't even bother to break the main color, the old color, because I can just keep that attached because it can carry up the back of the work, no problem, for when I start using it again, because I'm only going to use this color for a few rounds. So I've been working in 2x2 ribbing this whole time, but the first round of the new color, I am going to just knit plain. That's what's going to give us the clean break in the stripe, in ribbing. Okay, the next thing I want to do is, I've gone all the way around in the new color. I want to tie the tail of the new color to the working yarn of the new color right now to make sure that's not going anywhere. And then the last thing I want to do for a clean stripe break is to correct what you normally get in working in the round when you change colors, is you get a little color change jog. And we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is take my needle, and this is the first stitch of the second round. I'm going to pick up the right leg of the stitch in the old color below and put that up on the needle with the other stitch. I'll knit those two together. I'm still working with the pink yarn. And that is going to, whoops, not if I let go of everything. That's going to correct the color change jog. Or it does a pretty good job of coming very close to correcting it. And I'm knitting it a second time because my stitches just fell off the needle. Okay, and then, now that I'm on the second row of the new color, I'm going to go back to 2 by 2 rib. There we go. And you'll repeat this, knitting the first round of the new color every time you change color. And in this particular pattern, we change color once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. So you want to remember to do that each time. You'll notice right away if you forgot to do it because you'll see what I call muddy color changes. And next up, we are going to knit the heel flap. The heel flap in socks is this back part right here. The human foot is a weird thing to fit, so for this part of the sock, we stop knitting all of the instep stitches and we just focus on knitting the back part of the heel, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do right now. Our cuff is finished and we've finished all the striping and we're at the beginning of the round, and I know that because my tail is here, and if you follow it up between these stitches at the beginning of my round. The first thing I want to do is arrange the stitches so that half of them are on this first needle. And your pattern will give you the details. I'm slipping as if to purl. And I have half the stitches on this first needle. And then just to even things up, I'm going to separate these other two half and half. Okay, now we are going to work back and forth across this first needle only. This is going to be like scarf knitting, not knitting in the round anymore. It's going to be back and forth. And the directions tell us to first slip the first stitch. We put our needle in as if to purl and slide that stitch over from the left needle to the right without working it. Then we knit across all the rest of the stitches on this first needle. And I'm talking funny because I'm counting in my head. I actually don't need to be counting this part. I'm just knitting to the end of the first needle. Okay. Now we're going to turn the work, which means my next stitch isn't here. My next stitch is actually the inside of the sock, like this. And now I'm going to slip this first stitch and purl across all the rest of the stitches. It's a little awkward with the needles the way they are right now, but once you end up knitting a few rows, it gets easier because these other two needles aren't in the way anymore. Anyway, that's the technique. You're going to be knitting back and forth, following your pattern for as many rows as it tells you to knit for the heel flap. And in the next video, we're going to cover turning the heel, which is a way of changing direction in your work. The heel flap is this tiny bit of knitting right here that takes us from knitting this way to this way. It changes the direction of the work. It's a little bit complicated because it uses a technique that a lot of people haven't used before, which is called short row knitting. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. You definitely want to keep track of your rows for this because things change from row to row each time. We've finished knitting the cuff, we've finished knitting the heel flap, and we have the wrong side facing now on the heel flap. Row 1 of the directions tells us to purl 14, then purl 2 together, purl 1, and turn the work. Now we still have stitches left over here on the end of the needle that we have not worked yet. That's correct. We turn the work. Row 2 tells us to slip 1. You always slip as if to purl, and that gets the working yarn over on the correct side. Knit 6. Knit 2 together, knit 1, turn work. You see why it's called short rows? We still have leftovers over here again. Row 3, slip 1, and purl. Purl 2 together, purl 1, and turn the work. Anyway, you get the idea here. We're going to keep going back and forth, eating up more stitches each time until we have gone all the way across both directions and all of the stitches are being used again. And if you take a close look at your knitting, you will see that we are changing directions. We only have a little bit there, but you can already tell what's happening. Next up, we're going to pick up stitches for the gusset. Every time I get to this part of the knitting, it makes me realize more and more just how strange the human foot is to fit in a garment. I don't even know what this looks like. We've finished the heel flap and we've finished turning the heel. Now we need to pick up stitches so that we can knit the foot of the sock. Let's take a look. We're going to continue working with this same needle that we just finished up the turning the heel. And we want to pick up these stitches along the side of the heel flap. Because the heel flap is knit in stockinette stitch, it's going to curl. We want to unroll it and take a look at the very edgemost stitches. Now, since we slipped the first stitch on every row when we were knitting the heel flap, these are all nice, long, double long stitches. They're easy to see. We're going to take the tip of this needle here, the only needle we need, and we're going to put it into both legs of the V. We'll actually skip the first one, go into both legs of the V on the second stitch. Both legs of the V means these are what the stitches look like along the side of the heel flap. You want to go under both. You'll wrap it and pull it through. Go into the second one. Into the third one. And I'll tell you, after you wrap it, you want to put some decent tension on that working yarn to be able to pull that through. These are called picking up the gusset stitches, and this is called picking up the gusset stitches. I'm not counting, but you want to follow your pattern for the number of stitches it tells you to pick up. I'm not really paying attention, I'm just getting to the end here. Okay. Now we're not going to do 2 by 2 ribbing anymore. I want to just knit across these stitches, combining needles 2 and 3 onto the same needle. So I can drop that because we're going to combine these onto here. Now this knitting just gets weirder and weirder, doesn't it? Okay, and now we need to pick up stitches. For the other side of the heel flap, you're going to do the exact same thing you did before. Roll it so you can see the very edge stitches. Wrap it and pull it through. I'm using a new needle for this. Okay, and then you want to knit off of this first needle where you had the heel turning stitches. You'll want to knit to the center back. The pattern will tell you exactly how many stitches that is. This is a little awkward because it feels like we should have one more needle involved here, but it's only a few stitches. Okay, and now we're at the center back of the heel, and this is the new beginning of our round. And to follow the next bit of the pattern, and really every pattern that is a cuff down knitted pattern, whoops, let me turn it this way. This is the center back of our heel. This is needle 1, this is needle 2, this is needle 3. This is the beginning of our round. We're going to knit up to 3 stitches before the end of the first needle, knit 2 together, knit 1. We're going to plain knit across these stitches on needle 2, and then on needle 3, we will knit 1, SSK, and knit to the end. Then the next round is a plain knitted round. Then we do a decrease round again and a plain knitted round. And we keep doing that following the pattern until we get back down to the original number of stitches. Then we'll knit the foot, which is plain knitting, and then to do the toe decreases is a lot like the gusset decreases. You knit to the end and decrease, but instead of plain knitting across needle 2, we decrease here and here, and then on needle 3 as well, and knit to the end. So for gusset decreases, we decrease here and here. For toe decreases, we decrease here, 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 and here. So this next part of the sock actually goes pretty quickly because it's just plain knitting for the whole foot. Also, it goes quickly because it's a tiny baby sock, of course. And the next video, I'm going to show you how to use the Kitchener stitch to close up the toe. The Kitchener stitch is the way we're going to graft the toe stitches together. We should just have a few toe stitches left after you finish knitting the foot and decreasing for the toe. And I'll show you how this goes. Hopefully you're here. Your working yarn is still coming out of the back of the heel area. So the first thing we're going to do is to combine the stitches from needles 1 and 3 all onto one. And we're going to do that by knitting off of needle 1 onto needle 3. That will get our working yarn in the correct spot for the Kitchener stitch. Okay, now we take our tapestry needle. Oh, I broke the yarn, leaving myself, I don't know, about a foot-long tail. And thread that onto the tapestry needle. And line things up like this and scoot them down to close to the tip of the needles. We have half the stitches on each needle. So this is the process of the Kitchener stitch. You go into the first stitch on the front needle as if to knit, pull that stitch off without splitting it, there we go. Go into the next stitch as if to purl, leave that stitch on. Go to the back needle, go into that stitch as if to purl, pull that stitch off, go into the next one as if to knit, leave that stitch on. We go back, that's the sequence. I'll repeat it. Front needle, take it off. Front needle, leave it on. Back needle, purl, take it off. Knit, leave it on. And what I say in my head while I'm doing this so that I can keep track of where I am, I say knit, off, purl, purl, off, knit, knit, off, purl, whoops, there we go, purl, off, knit. And after the last knit of the 4 stitch sequence, I always give it a little tug. And you can see a little bit on here that it is seamless, it is beautiful, and there's no ridge on the inside either. So you finish up across the whole row with the last 2 stitches. And then you're going to want to weave in your ends and give these a little block or a little bit of steam to flatten them out to make them look really good. Oh, well, I guess you need to knit a second one first. You have a pair. And then steam them out a little bit, block them, and they'll be ready to present as a baby shower gift.